This is a heavy, heavy topic that absolutely no one is talking about.
Gorgeous, baby. You're gorgeous.
This is the Josh Podcast Show. The anti-podcast podcast on God and man. The show that everybody's talking about. The show that will become a necessary part of your weekly mental diet. The show that picks up where JoshRolfe.com leaves off. The show title that uses the word podcast 4 times. Introducing your host, Josh Rolfe.
What is the heavy topic? It's in the show title. Are conservatives funnier than liberals? It's a question I'm not going to let hang out there. You're not going to have to listen to me drone on forever today, waiting minute after minute while I pontificate about absolutely nothing, and you wait and wait and wait, and finally you just turn it off and you give up and you move on with your life. Not today. I'm going to answer the question very soon. Very, very, very soon. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're listening. I recommend you go to iTunes right now to rank my podcast. You don't have to leave a comment. You just give it 5 stars. Do it now before I offend half of you with the answer to my question, are conservatives funnier than liberals? Conventional wisdom says that liberals are more funny than conservatives. Why is that? Because liberals are freer with their thoughts, their imaginations, their wide open minds, their language, the topics they cover. They laugh at death. They laugh at life. They laugh at religion. They laugh at everything. I'm going to perform. Have I ever done a live Google search? I'm going to do this. I'm going live. Are conservatives funnier? Now, you know the fill-in feature? Are conservatives, you know what one of the first things that pops up as an option in the selection down below? It fills in, are conservatives stupid? Are conservatives racist? Okay. I want to type in funnier, like doesn't even, are conservatives funny? There's another option. It says conservatives are not funny. Another says, are there any funny conservatives? Well, I'm not going there. Are conservatives funnier than, and then you know what the drop down option is now on Google? I've typed, are conservatives funnier than, and the only option that it gives is liberals are funnier than conservatives. I'm typing a question. The Google search algorithm is trying to help me fill that in with what is a fact here. Liberals are funnier than conservatives. I'm not saying that's the fact, but that's the Google way of trying to help me to search. Well, I'm going to type, are conservatives funnier than liberals? Now, if I do it in quotes, out of the bazillions of pages on the internet, there are 2 results. When I put in quotes, are conservatives funnier than liberals? One was an article from 2009 in the Denver Post that said, why are conservatives funnier than liberals? And the answer someone gives is, they aren't. Comedians are liberals. The other was from 2007 from a page that looks like it's from Blogspot, which doesn't count. It was someone's blog. And they talk about our presidential candidates' choice of campaign staff. Are conservatives funnier than liberals? So isn't that funny that the only options it gives when I do it in quotes is because people don't frame the question that way. They frame the question as, why are liberals funnier than conservatives? It's like a fact. The way that we think about comedy is that liberals are just funnier than conservatives. So I said I'd answer the question right away, and now I'm 5 minutes in. So I've already gone against myself and my own goal. I'm not going to answer the question, okay? You can answer it for yourself, because I think that the answer is purely subjective, depends on who you are, depends on what you deem as funny. And I think things are funny that my wife doesn't. She finds things funny that I don't. That's just in our family, in our marriage relationship. Take my family, my siblings, my blood relatives, my parents. They all find things funny that I do not. Okay? That's just how life is. So I can't answer the question, are conservatives funnier than liberals, with yes or no, because it's subjective. There is no right answer. So see, I gave the answer to the question at minute 6 instead of waiting till minute 25 like I would typically do on a normal episode. But it's right now, it's 11:56 p.m. My computer, like the internet wouldn't work. I was trying to get this Mother Jones article to reload and it wouldn't do it. So you know what I did? I restarted the computer and I took a little nap. I just closed my eyes. And do I sound wide awake now? Like I feel totally like I had a power nap and I am ready to go, revving to go here. The Atlantic, a more left of center publication back in 2015, said the title of the article is "Waiting for the Conservative Jon Stewart." Jon Stewart, a liberal, has pictures in the article header of Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart, John Oliver, Bill Maher on the one side. On the other side, Greg Gutfeld of Fox News fame, Dennis Miller, Rush Limbaugh. And so the article doesn't answers it kind of the same way that I do, although they say that they provide a unified theory of why political satire is biased toward and talk radio is biased against liberals in America. One thing they say, one explanation about, I don't even know what the question is here, but one explanation. So if liberals are such vulnerable targets for humor, the article asks, why do relatively few conservative comedians seem to be taking aim at them? And then it goes on to say, one explanation is simply that proportionately fewer people with broadly conservative sensibilities choose to become comedians. Just as liberals dominate academia, journalism, and other writing professions, there are nearly 3 times as many liberal as conservative-minded people in the creative arts, according to a recent study. Okay, it's fascinating. Alison Dagnes, a professor of political science at Shippensburg University, argues that the same personality traits that shape political preferences also guide the choice of professions. These tendencies just get more pronounced in the case of comedy, which usually requires years of irregular income, late hours, and travel, as well as a certain tolerance for crudeness and heckling. Okay, fascinating, right? So that leads us to the Supreme Court proceedings that are on to their 3rd day when I wake up in the morning and when this podcast is live for all to see and listen to and mock. And we're going to hear the third day of the proceedings for Neil Gorsuch, Coloradan judge who is now being considered for the Supreme Court, Donald Trump's nominee, after Merrick Garland was put forward by Barack Obama last year, and after Antonin Scalia's death. And Republicans, Mitch McConnell really was the one that spearheaded this, said, hell no, we're not bringing him up for a vote until after elections. Well, the elections went Republicans' way, and so they said, forget it, we're not going to consider Garland, we're going to wait for Trump to nominate someone, and Trump nominates Neil Gorsuch. Okay. What does this have to do with comedy? Well, I listened today, and when you are dealing with the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is the main vetting body for Supreme Court nominees that considers the nominated justice, and then they'll vote up or down to whether to send him or whatever justice it is, or whatever nominee it is, to the Senate floor for a vote of the full Senate. Well, the Senate Judiciary Committee is not a fun or funny body of people. They're tasked with a very sobering, serious constitutional role, not just on judicial matters, but also crime. Well, there are judicial matters, Judiciary Committee, but they're not just dealing with judges on courts. They're dealing with writing criminal laws, writing labor laws and immigration laws to some extent. And so they have broad jurisdiction on topics that are not so funny. The only real thing funny about the group is their last names. Some of their last names, like on the Republican side, you have one Texas senator with the word corny in his name, spelled C-O-R-N-Y. Corn is also in his name, but corny is kind of funny. Now, his name is Cornyn. Okay. Now I can mock my name too. Rolf there is some comedy in the last name of Rolf. I've heard all the jokes, whether it's Rolf the Muppet dog, to Rolf like you're going to throw up, to Rolfing is a type of massage. And this isn't a personal attack on people with last names that are a little different or unusual. Not only is there a member with the word corny in his name, there's another with the word crap in his name. Senator Crapo, C-R-A-P-O. Crap-O, but he goes by Crapo, of course. There's Senator Flake, Jeff Flake. I don't think that's a funny last name, but there are people that laugh when they hear that name. I mean, if you had a very broad sense of laughing about people's last names, I mean, Senator Hatch, Orrin Hatch, Hatch is kind of a funny last name. It's different, right? And Grassley is the chairman. Senator Grassley. Wait, Grassley's not the chairman. Yeah, Grassley is, yes, Grassley. So he has grass in his name. It's kind of funny, right? On the Democratic side, you have a Senator Whitehouse. There is a man with the last name of Whitehouse, spelled White House, all one word, in the U.S. Senate. I think that's kind of funny. There's a Senator Coons, C-O-O-N-S. Sounds to me more like a Southerner's name, but that's a senator from the state of Delaware. And I guess the funniest thing about this committee isn't just their names, but it's also that Senator Al Franken serves on the committee. He established himself as a professional comedian. We all watched him, those of us who are over the age of 35, watched him on Saturday Night Live, where he performed as Pat. That was probably his most famous character. The gender neutral, we weren't sure if it was a man or a woman named Pat. He dressed up as him, her, and it was a very funny thing that he did. He wrote for the show. I'm not super familiar with his skits that he wrote, but he is on the Judiciary Committee. So you would think that when he's up, things would start to get funny. The thing is, and the reason I call this episode "Are Conservatives Funnier Than Liberals?" is because I was laughing at Judge Gorsuch today with a lot of his material. The guy was kind of funny, and it was surprising to me. Then you went through all the Democratic senators and their lines of questioning, and it was all just incredibly intense grilling of him. And and yet on the right, on the Republican side, it was very different. It was much more lighthearted. It was funny at times really funny, and I'll go through some of the things that happened. And you wouldn't get this. I mean, Al Franken did say something kind of funny when he said, I made a career in absurdity, and he got some laughs. And then he turned it to Gorsuch and said, which is why the absurdity in one of your claims, and then it just wasn't funny anymore. Al Franken has been very disappointing as a member of the U.S. Senate on his comedic talents. One would think he would have had, you'd see him on YouTube all the time saying funny things, but he never is. It's a little disappointing. There's 4 Mormons on that committee too, by the way, which is kind of interesting. None of them are professional comedians, but some of them were very funny. They weren't mocking. It was all very lighthearted, in a positive sense. And the other funny part about this, comedian Colin Quinn had a show for a while called Tough Crowd. I don't know if you've heard of the expression "a tough room." And if you go just do a search online, there's a site that describes what a tough room is. A tough room is an audience. The performer on the stage thinks or says it if the audience does not react the way he or she expected. Or the performer may pretend they're not reacting properly. For a comedian, this means that they're not laughing at his jokes. Room is performer slang for auditorium, saying you're a tough room. Oh gosh, this gets a little elaborate here, but the point is, there were times when Gorsuch would say something kind of funny, and yet, like yesterday, Politico reported on this, that during questioning about his views about past cases, Gorsuch made it clear that judges, like all humans, aren't without personal views, but it was incumbent on judges to rule fairly, he added. We're all human beings. I get that. I'm not an algorithm, Gorsuch said. We haven't yet replaced judges with algorithms, although I think eBay is trying. No one inside the hearing room laughed, Politico reports, and Gorsuch moved on. That wasn't so funny a joke. If he had said, although I think Google is trying, that would make a little more sense. eBay's algorithm, I think he meant to say Google. If he had said Google, maybe he would have gotten a chuckle or two. But That was yesterday. He was just getting warmed up, and not every comedian nails it right at the start. So he was giving it a good go. And then I did a search just on Gorsuch jokes, Gorsuch funny, Gorsuch comedian, to see what people are saying. And there was one chat room where they said that this guy is weird with a very strange sense of humor. They don't want to see him confirmed. So I think this goes into your worldview and the subjective nature of whether you consider conservatives or liberals to be more funny. This guy's takeaway was, I listened to some of his testimony and he has a strange way of answering questions. He thinks he's funny, but it's a sad kind of 10-year-old boy humor. Fox News today reported about the Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse, a Republican, who received a text from his wife and instead of keeping it to himself, thought he would share it. The text said, "How in the world is Gorsuch able to go so many hours at a time without peeing?" The question was met, according to Fox News, the question was met with uproarious laughter in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room, coming in the thick of a long day of questioning and also helping diffuse the tension from a tough round between Gorsuch and Democratic Senator Al Franken. Al Franken had set up so much tension that Ben Sasse, the conservative, comes in to lighten the tension. How do you think Al Franken, the trained professional comedian, felt when it was someone else stealing the show? Now, again, confirmation hearings for a judicial pick for the Supreme Court is serious business. So Al Franken, good for him for taking it seriously. Ben Sasse, did he go too far? Did Ted Cruz go too far? When he opened his question about what's his take on life, the universe, and everything, and then starts talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think that was a setup question by Gorsuch. Republicans and Gorsuch are having so much fun. It's really kind of entertaining. You should watch this. ArizonaCentral.com reported that Flake goes all Comedy Central on Gorsuch. Instead, they said, Flake asked a question suggested by his teenage son, and he asked, "Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?" And a question suggested by Flake's brother, who wanted to know whether the judge had ever worn gym shorts and a tank top under your robe. He also asked whether he likes to get his hands dirty and where his family goes on vacation. This is all very entertaining stuff. So I don't know if you have the patience to sit through. You got to sit through hours. I watched as much as I could today, but I had to leave the office and then had some calls and other work to do. So I missed a lot of the proceedings, but it was very entertaining and just made me think, wow, conservatives are being funny. Who would have thought? Because you don't usually think of conservatives as being funny. And that's all I had to talk about today. Nothing, not as polarizing as you thought, right? And next week, I really hope next week, this is probably good setup for my politics episode that I've been trying to do since the elections mainly. I think I was preparing it before when things were just so polarizing and the tension in the air was so thick about the Trump versus Clinton thing. And I just wanted to talk about that, having spent my career thus far in politics. So I hope that next week I'll be able to talk about that. And I'm going to be the name of the episode for now is Gender, Politics, and Gender, Politics, Math. That's the title for next week's episode. How am I going to talk about politics and gender? Am I going to talk about gender politics? What does math have to do? They all are woven together into the next episode. So I've said it. Now I have to do it. I also posted last week about watching La La Land and getting inspired about doing a podcast musical. So I'm going to talk about that soon too, because that's something that is going to happen. And I'll probably discuss with you beforehand the type of musical I should do. Should I go full on musical, or should I just sing a podcast? What should I do? That's the big question.
Thank you for listening to the Josh Podcast Show, the anti-podcast podcast on God and man. For more information, visit joshpodcast.com. Follow Josh on Twitter at Josh Rolfe. That's Rolfe, R-O-L-P as in podcast, H. Now go and have the best day and night ever. And have fun.